There's something sitting in your refrigerator right now that millions of people heat up every single day without a second thought. It looks fine, it smells fine, it tastes fine. But what's happening inside that food at the molecular level is anything but fine. We've been told that leftovers are smart, economical, convenient, and for most foods, that's true. But for 5 very specific foods, the act of reheating them doesn't just warm them up. It triggers chemical reactions that generate compounds directly linked to DNA damage, cellular mutation, and cancer development. I want to be very clear about something before we go further. This isn't about fear. This isn't about throwing everything out of your fridge. This is about understanding what's actually happening inside your food when you reheat it, so you can make a simple, informed decision. Because the difference between safe and dangerous often comes down to one thing: how you store it and what you do with it the next day. Hi, I'm Dr. Chester, and I've spent over a decade working in oncology research and clinical nutrition. And one of the most common things I hear from patients, people who exercise, who eat vegetables, who genuinely try to live healthy lives, is complete shock when I explain what certain reheated foods are doing inside their bodies. They've been doing something they thought was healthy every single week, and nobody ever told them the truth about it. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly which 5 foods become chemically dangerous when reheated, what specific compounds they produce, what the peer-reviewed science actually says, and most importantly, what you can safely do instead. No fear-mongering, just the mechanism, the evidence, and the practical fix. Let's start with the science, because once you understand this, everything else will make complete sense. Your food is not a static object. It's a collection of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, water molecules, and living or recently living biological compounds. When you cook food the first time, heat causes specific chemical changes. Proteins unfold, starches gelatinize, fats oxidize slightly. That's normal. That's cooking. But when you cool that food down and then heat it again, you're not just pressing rewind. You're introducing a second round of chemical stress onto compounds that are already in a transformed, often unstable state. 3 specific processes make reheated food dangerous. Process 1: nitrosamine formation. Certain foods, especially those naturally high in nitrates or proteins, produce nitrosamines when reheated. Nitrosamines are among the most potent carcinogens ever identified in food science. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies several nitrosamines as Group 1 or Group 2A carcinogens, meaning either confirmed or probable causes of cancer in humans. They form when secondary amines in food react with nitrite compounds under heat. The first cooking might produce trace amounts. The reheating dramatically accelerates that process. Process 2: lipid peroxidation. Fats, especially polyunsaturated fatty acids, are chemically fragile. When you heat them once, they begin oxidizing. When you cool them and heat them again, the oxidation continues and accelerates, producing compounds called aldehydes, including malondialdehyde and 4-hydroxynonenal. These aldehydes are genotoxic. They damage your DNA directly. Research published in Food Chemistry has shown that repeated heating of cooking oils and high-fat foods produces aldehyde concentrations orders of magnitude higher than single heating. Process 3: protein glycation and AGE formation. Advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, form when proteins and sugars react under heat. First heating creates some AGEs. Reheating multiplies them. AGEs are pro-inflammatory compounds that have been linked in the literature to accelerated cellular aging, cancer progression, and chronic disease. A 2014 review in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that AGE content in reheated, previously cooked foods was significantly higher than in freshly prepared equivalents. Now, and this is critical, not every food produces these compounds equally when reheated. Most foods are perfectly fine to reheat safely, but 5 specific foods, due to their unique chemical composition, are exceptionally prone to these reactions. And these 5 foods happen to be among the most commonly reheated foods in kitchens around the world. Let's go through them one by one. Food 1: reheated rice. This one surprises almost everyone. Rice seems harmless. It's a grain. What could possibly go wrong? Here's what's actually happening. Uncooked rice contains dormant spores of a bacteria called Bacillus cereus. Cooking rice kills the active bacteria, but the spores survive. When cooked rice sits at room temperature, even for just 1 to 2 hours, those spores germinate. The bacteria multiply rapidly, and they begin producing 2 types of toxins. One toxin causes vomiting. The other causes diarrhea. But here's the part that's more insidious and less talked about. The toxin-producing bacteria also produce a compound called cerulide, which has been studied for its ability to damage mitochondrial DNA in cells. Mitochondrial DNA damage is one of the early mechanisms in cancer development. Your mitochondria regulate cellular energy, apoptosis, which is the programmed death of damaged cells, and oxidative stress response. When cerulide disrupts mitochondrial function, cells that should self-destruct when damaged instead survive and proliferate. A 2019 study in Frontiers in Microbiology found that Bacillus cereus toxins produce measurable cytotoxicity, meaning they kill healthy cells or damage their genetic material, at concentrations achievable in improperly stored rice. Reheating that rice does not destroy these toxins. Cerulide is heat stable. You can boil it and it survives. The safe practice: cook rice in smaller portions that you'll finish in one meal. If you must store it, cool it rapidly, within 1 hour, and refrigerate it immediately. Use it within 24 hours. Never leave cooked rice sitting at room temperature overnight. And when reheating, ensure it reaches a steaming hot temperature throughout, not just warm on the outside. Food 2. Reheated chicken. Chicken is one of the most reheated proteins in the world, and it's also one of the most chemically reactive when you expose it to heat a second time. Here's the mechanism. Chicken is exceptionally high in protein. Specifically, it contains large amounts of creatine and amino acids. When you heat protein-rich meat to high temperatures, those compounds react with heat to form heterocyclic amines, or HCAs. The first cooking already produces some HCAs, but when you reheat chicken, especially at high temperatures in a microwave, oven, or pan, the protein structure has already been denatured from the first cooking. That denatured protein is far more reactive. The second round of heat drives HCA formation at a significantly higher rate. HCAs are classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as probable human carcinogens, Group 2A. Multiple epidemiological studies have linked high intake of HCA-containing foods to increased risks of colorectal, pancreatic, and breast cancer. A study published in Cancer Research demonstrated that people who ate well-done or reheated chicken more than 3 times per week had a measurably higher incidence of bladder cancer compared to those who did not. The mechanism was clear. HCAs form DNA adducts. They physically attach to your DNA strands, and if those adducts aren't repaired before cell division, they become permanent mutations. Beyond HCAs, reheated chicken also changes structurally in ways that affect digestion. The protein becomes harder to break down, leading to increased fermentation in the large intestine, which itself produces secondary metabolites that can damage the intestinal lining. The safe practice: if you're reheating chicken, do it gently. Use a low oven, around 300 degrees Fahrenheit, with a splash of water or broth to keep moisture in. Never microwave chicken on high heat. Better yet, repurpose leftover chicken cold, in salads or wraps, rather than reheating it at all. And never reheat chicken more than once. Food 3. Reheated spinach and other leafy greens. This one is deeply counterintuitive. Spinach is one of the healthiest foods on earth. It's loaded with iron, folate, magnesium, and antioxidants. But when you reheat cooked spinach, or any nitrate-rich leafy green, you create a very specific and very serious chemical problem. Spinach is naturally extremely high in nitrates. That's actually one of its health benefits when eaten fresh. Dietary nitrates convert in the body to nitric oxide, which supports cardiovascular function and blood pressure. The problem begins the moment spinach is cooked and then allowed to cool. Bacteria that are naturally present on the leaf surface begin converting nitrates into nitrites. Refrigeration slows this process but does not stop it. When you then reheat that spinach, the increased temperature dramatically accelerates nitrate to nitrite conversion. And here is the critical step. Those nitrites, in the presence of the amino acids in spinach and the acidic environment of your stomach, combine to form nitrosamines. Nitrosamines, the same group 1 carcinogens we discussed earlier. A study in the European Journal of Nutrition found that reheated leafy greens, particularly spinach, had nitrite concentrations up to 5 times higher than freshly cooked equivalents. The researchers specifically flagged this as a concern for cancer risk with regular consumption of reheated greens. The safe practice? Cook leafy greens fresh every time. They take minutes to prepare. There's genuinely no need to batch cook them. If you do have leftover cooked spinach or kale, eat it cold the next day rather than reheating it. Add it to a smoothie, mix it into a cold grain bowl, or stir it into room temperature pasta. The risk is specifically in the reheating, not in eating it cold. Food 4. Reheated eggs. Eggs are one of the most nutritionally complete foods in existence. They're a staple breakfast food globally, and they're one of the most commonly reheated foods. Scrambled eggs from yesterday, a boiled egg warmed up, an omelet from last night's dinner. Here's what happens chemically. Eggs are primarily protein and fat. The proteins in egg whites, particularly albumin and ovalbumin, when cooked once, undergo a process called denaturation. That's what makes them solid. When you reheat them, especially at high temperatures in a microwave, those proteins undergo a second round of structural change. This secondary denaturation produces oxidized cholesterol, also called oxysterols. Oxysterols are not like regular dietary cholesterol. They are biologically active molecules that have been shown in the scientific literature to promote atherogenesis, trigger apoptotic cell death in healthy cells, and, critically, promote cancer cell proliferation. A study in food and chemical toxicology found that microwaving eggs significantly increased oxysterol content compared to fresh preparation, with repeated heating producing the highest concentrations. The yolk fat is particularly vulnerable. Egg yolks contain highly polyunsaturated fatty acids that oxidize readily under high heat. When you reheat a cooked yolk, especially in a microwave, you're generating lipid peroxidation products, including malondialdehyde, which we discussed earlier as a direct DNA-damaging agent. Additionally, from a purely practical safety standpoint, improperly reheated eggs are a leading cause of salmonella reactivation. The bacteria can survive in underheated eggs and multiply rapidly. The safe practice. Boiled eggs are the safest leftover egg format. Eat them cold or at room temperature. For scrambled eggs or omelets, make only what you need. If you truly must reheat eggs, use low heat, a covered pan over a very low flame with a tiny amount of added water, and heat just until warm, not hot. Microwaving eggs on high should be avoided entirely. Food 5. Reheated potatoes. Potatoes are the most eaten vegetable in the Western world. They're cheap, filling, and versatile. And the habit of making a big batch of roasted potatoes or mashed potatoes and reheating them throughout the week is nearly universal. 2 separate mechanisms make reheated potatoes dangerous. Mechanism 1. Acrylamide formation. Acrylamide is a chemical that forms when starchy foods are exposed to high temperatures, typically above 250 degrees Fahrenheit. The reaction is called the Maillard reaction, and it occurs between the amino acid asparagine, which potatoes contain in high concentrations, and natural sugars. Fresh frying or roasting produces some acrylamide. Reheating previously cooked potatoes, especially in an oven or air fryer, produces significantly more, because the starch has already been pre-broken down from the first cooking, making the asparagine far more chemically available for the reaction. The World Health Organization has identified acrylamide as a probable human carcinogen. Animal studies have consistently shown that acrylamide causes cancer. Human epidemiological data has linked dietary acrylamide exposure to increased risk of kidney, endometrial, and ovarian cancer. A 2014 meta-analysis in Nutrition and Cancer analyzed 11 cohort studies and found a statistically significant association between dietary acrylamide intake and renal cell carcinoma. Mechanism 2. Clostridium botulinum toxin risk in foil-stored potatoes. This second mechanism specifically applies to baked potatoes stored in aluminum foil, an extremely common practice. Foil creates an anaerobic environment, meaning no oxygen. Clostridium botulinum produces its toxin only in anaerobic conditions. Potatoes stored warm or at room temperature in foil for extended periods can develop botulinum toxin concentrations high enough to cause serious neurological harm. Reheating does not reliably destroy this toxin. The safe practice. If you're reheating potatoes, use gentle, moist heat. Steaming is the safest method. Never reheat roasted or fried potatoes in an oven or air fryer at high temperatures. Store baked potatoes unwrapped and refrigerated, and whenever possible, cook potatoes fresh. A plain boiled potato takes 15 minutes. It's genuinely one of the easiest fresh cooking swaps you can make. The studies that convinced me this was real. Let me ground everything I've told you in specific peer-reviewed evidence. I want you to walk away with more than just my word for it. Study 1. A 2018 study published in Food Chemistry tested the acrylamide content of freshly cooked potato products versus reheated equivalents. Reheated potato chips showed acrylamide concentrations 153% higher than freshly prepared chips. Reheated roasted potatoes showed increases of 87%. The researchers concluded that repeated heating of starchy foods represents a significant and under-recognized dietary source of acrylamide exposure. Study 2. A study in the British Journal of Nutrition examined nitrite concentrations in leafy green vegetables, including spinach, Swiss chard, and beet greens, at various stages of storage and reheating. Nitrite levels in freshly cooked spinach were minimal. After 1 day of refrigerated storage and reheating, nitrite concentrations had increased by 400%. After 2 days, 700%. The researchers specifically noted that these concentrations placed regular consumers of reheated leafy greens in a risk category for elevated nitrosamine exposure. Study 3. Research from the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry analyzed heterocyclic amine formation in chicken cooked once versus chicken reheated in a microwave. Microwave reheating of previously grilled chicken increased PHIP, one of the most abundant and carcinogenic HCAs, by 320% compared to the originally cooked sample. PHIP has been specifically implicated in breast and prostate cancer development. Study 4. A systematic review in Nutrients examining Bacillus cereus and cooked rice found that cereulite toxin was detected in 74% of rice samples that had been cooked and stored at room temperature for more than 2 hours. The review confirmed that reheating to standard home cooking temperatures did not degrade cereulide meaningfully. The authors recommended aggressive refrigeration within 1 hour of cooking as the only reliable prevention strategy. Study 5. A comprehensive dietary assessment study published in Cancer Epidemiology followed 62,000 adults over 8 years and tracked dietary patterns alongside cancer incidence. Frequent reheating of high-protein foods, specifically chicken, eggs, and processed meats, was associated with a 28% increased risk of colorectal cancer compared to matched controls who prepared food fresh. The association remains statistically significant after controlling for total caloric intake, smoking, alcohol, and physical activity. These are not fringe findings. These are mainstream, peer-reviewed, replicated results from research institutions across Europe, the United States, and Asia. The practical protocol: what to do instead. Here is the simple, realistic framework I give my own patients. Rule 1. The 24-hour maximum. With very few exceptions, leftovers should be consumed within 24 hours. The longer cooked food sits, even refrigerated, the more chemical transformation occurs. Set a personal standard that leftovers are for the next day, not for 3 days from now. Rule 2. Rapid cooling is non-negotiable. The danger window for most of these foods is the cooling period. Bacteria multiply, nitrates convert, and toxins develop most aggressively between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, what food scientists call the danger zone. Get hot food into the refrigerator within 1 hour. Use shallow containers to accelerate cooling. Don't pile leftovers into one deep container and assume the fridge will handle it. Rule 3. Reheat to steaming, not warm. If you must reheat food, it needs to reach an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit throughout, not just on the surface. A lukewarm, reheated meal that feels warm to the touch may still have cold spots where bacteria are thriving. Rule 4. Reheat only once. Every reheating cycle compounds the chemical changes. Reheat only what you're about to eat, not the entire batch. Take out your portion, heat it, and return the rest to the refrigerator. Rule 5. Know which foods to always make fresh. Spinach, eggs, and rice should ideally always be freshly prepared. They are so fast and easy to cook from scratch that batch cooking them genuinely offers no practical benefit that outweighs the risk. The common mistakes I see constantly. Mistake 1. Microwaving on maximum power. Microwave ovens heat unevenly and very aggressively. For every food on this list, high-power microwaving dramatically accelerates the dangerous chemical reactions we've discussed. If you use a microwave, use 50% power and longer time. Let food rest for 2 minutes after heating so heat distributes evenly. Mistake 2. Trusting appearance and smell. This is perhaps the most dangerous misconception in food safety. Cereulide toxin in rice is odorless and colorless. Nitrosamines in spinach don't announce themselves. Acrylamide in potatoes doesn't smell different. The foods that kill you slowly through repeated exposure rarely look or smell wrong. Appearance is not a safety indicator. Mistake 3. Using the same storage containers for everything. Plastic containers, especially those that aren't BPA-free, leach additional compounds into food during both storage and reheating. Use glass containers exclusively for storing and reheating food. It's one of the easiest, most impactful kitchen swaps you can make. Mistake 4. Assuming piping hot equals safe. Heat kills bacteria. It does not destroy toxins those bacteria have already produced. Cereulide, botulinum toxin, and many nitrosamines are heat stable. Once they're there, heating cannot remove them. Prevention, proper storage, rapid cooling, fresh preparation is your only reliable protection. Mistake 5. Dismissing this as too inconvenient to change. I hear this from patients. I don't have time to cook fresh every night. I understand, and I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to be strategic. Make a larger batch of foods that are safe to reheat. Legumes, grains like oats or quinoa, root vegetable soups, and identify the 5 foods in this video as your always fresh list. Small behavioral change, significant long-term impact on your cellular health. What I want you to remember: cancer doesn't develop overnight. It develops through accumulated cellular damage over years and decades. Every exposure matters, not because one reheated meal will give you cancer, but because the body keeps a long, precise record of every insult to its DNA, every inflammatory signal, every oxidative stress event. Subscribe so you never miss research like this, and check out my next video on the specific cooking oils that become carcinogenic at high heat. It's the same science, different kitchen habit, and it affects nearly every household on the planet.